I've had a lot of hard things happen in life, and I just realized that life goes by very, very quickly. I want to create as much joy as I can for people. With that is having places that you're going to laugh hysterically, or having places where you've probably received the worst news of your life, but you still feel comfort and you feel safe.
Very excited today for the podcast. We have Jen Davidson on with us. Welcome, Jen.
Hey, Brad. Good to be here.
It's good to have you. So Jen is with IJD. You are the CEO and principal designer at Interiors by Jen Davidson. So
Yeah.
IJD, that is a mouthful, but I love it. It's easy. It's not too
Yeah. Easy, right?
bad. And Jen and I go way back. Fortunately, we met through the Luann Nigera, all
Yeah.
her outlets out there. Jude Charles, a lot of people have been following along. He's been filming a documentary on us. You did yours. I mean, that was actually when he pitched me to do it. He sent me yours, so I got to watch yours. So I feel like I know you really well because I've seen your documentary. So
I know. I felt the same way with you because I got a little sneak peek of yours. I was like, Brad, man, I know you.
It's funny how that is, right? There's something different about video. That all of a sudden you go on video, and you and I just spent time in Chicago, which we'll speak about. But I'm like, it feels like I know Jen already just because what Jude does a really good job of is like your personality, your drive, like your passion, and really showing who you are. That really speaks. And I think as people, we align with other people that
Yeah.
have similar views on business, and it really brings that out where people are like, hey, I want to hire Jen because I think she's a really good person. She's a great designer and a great businesswoman.
I mean, that's exactly why I wanted to do the docuseries with Jude is, I can show the pretty pictures all day long, but that's not showing who I am and what it looks like to work with me and my team. And we just have a way of doing things. And I wanted to be able to tell the story of how we do that. So I just thought video is the best way to really share who we are.
It's amazing. And, for you, I know you're very passionate about learning. You're obsessed with business, which really leads you to be very successful at business because I think business is complicated and interior design is complicated. Construction is complicated, being a builder. And the problem is, for me, we're a fee builder. There's only so much you can charge. So you have to really learn how to operate your business.
Yeah.
And what's tough as a builder is you're taking deposits. There's, money moving in and out. And so you may look at your bank account thinking, oh, everything's great without realizing, what those dollars, what they really account for.
Right.
And, a lot of business owners don't understand what their true overhead is. Where does this obsession come with business for you to be able to attend the Contractor Coalition Summit, to attend other venues, to really, get the upper hand, if you will, when it comes to owning an interior design business?
To go back a little bit, I used to have a little bit of shame on this, but I don't anymore. But I didn't finish college. I'm a college dropout.
Why is that shame? There's no shame there.
But that's just something I carried for a long time. And I think people who don't finish college, they feel that way. But life happened.
Right.
I don't anymore. But when I was younger, I'm now in my 40s. So I think once you get in your 40s, you just don't care as much. But I became a flight attendant. That led me to a whole other life. But within that, I always knew that there was something deeper and more within me. I just didn't know what that was. And then I got into interior design and start running. I don't want to even say I was running a business of interior design. I was decorating houses and then started doing new builds and learning all the different steps, which I felt like I was drowning. I was getting all these amazing projects. We were doing amazing work, but I was drowning and I could not pinpoint what it was. Well, it was because I wasn't running a business. I was not in a mindset of a CEO whatsoever. I was in a mindset of colors and palettes and customer experience, which is all very important. But to run a successful interior design firm, you really have to know what it looks like to run a business. So I shifted my mindset and I really just was like, I'm going to become a student and I'm going to learn everything that there is and really start peeling back the onion of this business. What does that look like? Well, what is my mission? What am I doing here? What are my values? Like that's where it all started with. And then from there, started coming all right, we need a process. And from that process, we need SOPs. And
Hmm.
from that, I need to build a very strong team that can handle each one of these processes, these SOPs, these
Hmm.
we use different softwares. There was a thing that I came up with was kept on thinking of pillars. Like I needed these pillars. I need a strong foundation. Well, these pillars are kind of like our system, and the people is what hold the pillars up to
Hmm.
really create that foundation, that solid ground. And once that started happening, everything just started falling in place, you know, and it just allowed me to have better conversations, ask better questions, go to things like the summit and learn from my partners who I'm working with day to day, learning about their business and just taking all that in. Um, so, yeah, I just kind of spewed it all out there, but that's how it all started.
I love that because what's interesting is, and we could tie this into the summit later because what I do love is the summit is really positioned to teach people how to be better business owners,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
bring in like La Liberté, who's still at the same time like, hey, you still need to be a good builder, like
You're
you
right.
still need to understand building science.
Yeah.
And what's interesting for you, Jen, is like you're very talented, as you mentioned. I mean, this is like grassroots as you're coming in and you're getting hired to these amazing projects because you're so talented. You have a great eye for it. You understand design. But to your point, running a business is totally different. You have to change that hat. And what's
Yeah.
really hard for a lot of us creative people, or for those that are creative, is
Yeah.
they may be very creative, but now I have to get the logical brain going to figure out
Yeah.
accounting and figure out cash flow and WIP. And as you
Yes.
mentioned, all the different things and strategies that come with owning a business.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it allows me to run the business and to run my projects in such a more organized way. And to, I hate to say this, but we get these projects where we work with clients or we work with someone else who start to try to micromanage where the project just gets off tracks and it's really hard to get it back,
Mhm.
back on to that track. And with having like this process that we've really built out, it just allows to be able to have harder conversations because things happen and we have to have hard conversations. But when we have something that's a little bit more streamlined, it's easier to have.
How do you, in your experience, when you've had projects get off track,
Mhm.
why did they get off track?
Oh gosh, there's so many different. That's a loaded question, Brad. There's
Spit it all out. Share it with all
Yeah,
of us.
right. Lots of different things can happen. Expectations that were wrong, or preconceived expectations, right? So I try to bring expectations on early on and have these conversations of this is what will could happen. This is what happens when we change the product. Change orders are going to come in. It's going to delay. It's going to build more time into the finishing of this project. Everybody wants, I always say, we're not Amazon Prime. Like, this is not happening overnight, that this takes time. It's not going to be something that's going to be quick and fast. Like, I hate using this word because I feel like it's so overused, but it's so true. There is a process to the madness. There are so many details and we don't want anything to be dropped and everything has to be allocated for. So it's not just fast moving. Once someone approves a design, well, then I have to go back to my cabinet. Let's say like for cabinetry, if my cabinetry is approved, we have all the drawings correct. Well, it doesn't just go into production tomorrow. There's lots of other steps that go into it that then adds to the timeline. So anything that changes after that step can mess up that whole process. So it's really just like, okay, remember when we had this conversation and I told you this, So we're going back to this. I know we want it done by Christmas, but we're going to enjoy it because it's going to be beautiful and it's going to be perfectly done by next Christmas. Like, let's really set true, real expectations because I don't want anyone mad at me because I've overpromised something. But for example, we have something going on right now where they were doing a completely remodel, big renovation, and they want it done by Christmas. Well, we are so close, but we're not going to be quite there. Um, and I'm doing everything on my power in the back end to make this Christmas special. It's not going to be completely done. We're not going to have our countertops in but it's like, okay, let's get some plywood. Let's get a dropped in, temporary sink. We'll go and have like, we'll sign it. We'll do some fun things with it to make it memorable.
Hmm.
And then we're going to make it great. So by New Year's Eve, you can host your party or what have so we just have to be creative when things don't go how our clients, you know, they put their expectations of, it's going to be done, but it's not. I
Do
don't.
you feel you're much better, in your business now setting expectations than early on?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Because I've gone through all the
Yeah.
hard things.
Yeah.
You learn, you fall, you scrape your knee, it hurts. And then you dust yourself off, you put a band aid on, and you keep going. That's kind of how I raise my kids. And I look at this as kind of the same way of, just having just conversations and being real and talking through it. And I don't know. I just don't want it to be, things are hard already in life. I don't want it to be too hard. I want to have a good time. I want to build great relationships. And I look at this as like we're helping someone write their story. The
Hmm.
way I design is very story driven. I really dig deep, get into knowing their relationship to this home, their family life. I want to know like what they're thinking about in the future, how this home's going to represent that. And that's how I base all of my design. And so as we're working, I use this knowledge that I have to work through different conversations that we have. If it's a hard one where they've pictured this Christmas tree being in this room and they put in their mind they want it this Christmas. Well, I'm talking, we're doing this next Christmas, and this is the perfect spot, and I will try to just kind of re-navigate the the direction of the conversation to something more, you know, in the future you're going to enjoy a lot longer than you are right now. It's kind of the way.
I love that because it's funny when you were giving the example of even speaking about being creative, right? Because yes, timelines change. Sometimes there's unforeseen. In general, it's funny because I look early on, I was trying to be, I wouldn't say liked by the customer, but I was trying to over deliver, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, Brad, this is coming up. We want to be in by the holidays. Like, we got this event or a wedding or whatever it may be. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to come in and get this done. All of a sudden, you're not. And now it's a
Yeah.
big problem.
Yeah.
And as you become more experienced, and one example I'll give, we were doing this massive project, and the client's like, listen, I, we're getting married, 18 months from now, and we want to be married in our backyard, like here.
Mm.
And I remember looking at the project and I'm like, hey, early Brad 1.0 would have said, yeah,
All
we're
right.
going to do it. This would be amazing. Get your wedding. Like, we're going to hit this home. And Brad 2.0 realized, hey, 18 months from now, like, we're actually like a month or two past the wedding. Like, we're not moving this up. Like, if anything, it might move back. And I remember telling him, hey, I'm going to be the bad guy now, but you're not planning a wedding here. Plan a great
Yeah.
venue. You don't want to stress about this anyways. Get married, enjoy it, go on your honeymoon, come back, and then we'll have the house done.
Yeah.
And it was, and the client actually thanked me at the end. But it's funny, you think about those expectations early on, you're trying to make someone happy instead of you're the expert for a reason. And in fairness, Jen, early in your business, you just don't understand that. But
No.
as you do, you can be more confident and set
Yeah.
those terms.
Yeah. And then it just builds trust with your
Right.
client. And then they start to trust you more and more as the project goes along. And that's what I want to do. It's just like anything. It's really like any kind of relationship. You want to build trust. You want to build a great relationship or rapport. There's going to be hard conversations. Okay, let's do this in a mature way. Um, so that's kind of how I look at it. And it makes the harder conversations a lot easier to have because I never want to bring bad news or be confronted with someone unhappy. So it's like, okay, let's think all the things that could happen in the beginning. And then just me and my team, we're just always a step ahead of always just thinking things through. Again, that goes back to us having a process, and us really clocking each step of the way through our project.
It's funny because you'd rather be the bad person now,
Yeah.
saying find a venue instead of I got everyone coming to the wedding, you're not ready. Like that's a lot worse conversation. You mentioned Jen, you say your designs are very story driven. I think there's a lot of designers that design maybe certain aesthetics, certain
Sure.
themes. Some are very versatile. Some can do so many different design styles, if you will.
Mhm.
But for you, when you talk about story, like dive into that. What does that mean to you or to the client
Yeah.
to make it that much more personal for them?
It really started with one of the projects I filmed with Jude. It was a legacy project. This couple, this was not their forever home, but this is a home. This was their legacy home where this land had been in their family for multiple generations. They have built different houses on it. They have a private golf course that's on it. This land meant so much to the owners that they wanted this to be the place where they came back for like family gatherings, Christmas, Thanksgiving. All of their kids are grown and they're all spread throughout the country, but this land was just something very important to them. So I really dove in and asked them just certain things. And in these conversations, this rug came up that was 100+ years old rug that came over from France, and it's been in like his great grandmother's house, his grandmother, it's just been passed down. Same thing with this beautiful Steinway that their son grew up playing, and whenever he comes home that he plays it. So things like this, I started taking and started developing rooms around it because this was a new build, a new construction. So we created a piano room where the Steinway was with the rug. So we could really tell that story within that space, that room. Also, they both had a love of horses. So we have a lot of nods to equestrian in there with like leather and
Mhm.
just different styles, some paintings and artwork that they had throughout the home that just really told this couple's story where this was a new build home, but as their family came back, it told their life story. And that was kind of like an aha moment for me that made designing that home so much more fun for all of us. And we kept on surprising our clients as we built things in because I build relationships. I start having conversations when they tell me about this, one piece of artwork that they love. And I was like, oh, do you have a picture of it? Great. Oh, can you send that to me? Because I love this. Okay, let me put this in my back pocket. So then when we present, I found a perfect wall for this beautiful horse artwork. So that was just something that was a lot of fun. And I was like, that's who I am. I've always been that way. That's why Jude and I connect, is because he's a storyteller as well. And so that really has become a core value in who we are.
I love that you share that, Jen. I've had a couple experiences with clients where, the designer, very similar to you, Jen, really incorporates. Recently, we had a project, and I won't say the name of the project for the client's privacy, but somehow the designer got every key. They had kept every key from every apartment they lived in,
Oh, wow.
from newlyweds and on. They just kept one of those
Yeah,
keys. Like they had like a box of it.
sure.
And what's interesting is she actually asked the client, like, do you have like stores? Do you have thing collectibles like memoirs? Because so
Hmm.
many times we have those, or maybe you have from your kids or special
Yeah,
things, and you put them in boxes in the garage. You never see them. There's just
yeah,
storage. And she would go through that and she would incorporate these things. So she, incorporate these keys into this incredible piece for their
yeah,
house. And I just remember like how touching. You think about design, like, you know, I'm such a proponent of design for so many reasons. I mean, one, just selfishly as a builder, it makes my life a lot easier. So I can
sure.
stay within budget. I can build, in a good timeline. Of course, marketing, and you have all these amazing things. But I see how it resonates with clients that when they make that investment and they do that, they're so much happier throughout the build. They're so much happier
Hmm.
when they move in. They're so excited. So many times the designer's like, hey, you can't see the furniture. We're going to have a grand reveal. So once we're like 2 weeks from completion, the client's not allowed in the house. And then they have this reveal. And you just see them emotional. I can't tell you
Yeah,
how many times I've seen the clients crying.
yeah.
How does that fuel your passion when you see, look, this is a painful business. And I'm sure there's days where you're like, I don't,
Oh, yeah.
you may have a certain project or client, you're like, I want to quit. But then you have those amazing experiences like that you filmed in your docuseries.
Yeah. I mean, that's everything to me. It's just like, again, it's kind of like, you're a parent. It's same here. Is seeing things through our kids' eyes. Like we take them to Disney World, or if it's Christmas morning and they've been hoping for, I don't know. We're going to say a drum set, which would be
Yeah.
the worst thing possible. But
As a
um,
parent,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just seeing the excitement on their face, it just warms your heart. It's the same thing. I mean, I am a human and I love humans, even though they challenge me at times. But I love bringing joy to other people. They're
Mhm.
again, at this part of my life can be so hard, and I'm looking at this is a good thing. When we're moving into a home, this is exciting. We're creating memories. Going back to the story driven, like there was another project I was working on, and this couple, they're here in this States for like a work permit for the next few years while their daughter, who is a teenager, until she finishes high school. And so I'm thinking like her having sleepovers with her girlfriends, prom pictures, all different kinds of things and moments. And actually, when I was filming with Jude, I had told him this story. And my client's daughter did have a sleepover. And right before we started filming, all of the girls were in the kitchen over this huge island. Part of the reason why we designed this huge island for this just to be a place where all the kids came, congregated, had fun, and I got to see it like I had this dream of it, and then I got to see it actually happen. And I was like, this is the absolute best. This makes everything so worth it. And my client said the same thing because I talked about that within our whole like design process, and during like the creation of everything before we got into construction. I kept on putting that, memory, or not that memory, but that what's the word? I don't know. When you're trying to think ahead, whatever that word is, that's what I'm trying to think of. Not a
That's
memory, but whatever that moving forward word is. I don't know. Someone out there is screaming it to their
right. It
radio.
tends to happen sometimes when you're on camera, right? It doesn't come
Yeah.
to you. For you, Jen, and this ties into, why you did the docuseries. What resonated with you? Because there's an investment to do that, right?
Yeah.
There's more than that, a vulnerability, right? Because you're
Oh,
putting
yeah.
stuff out there. You're on camera. It's like, okay, what are they gonna come up with? What's you gonna document?
Sure.
What was that tipping point for you to move forward with that?
It was not on my bingo card at all. I
On my
wasn't.
bingo card.
No, I wasn't thinking that I was going to do a docuseries, but sitting with Jude, we had breakfast one morning. We were at similar to Contractor Coalition Summit. There's a retreat that I go to every year, which I highly suggest. Rick Campos, he does a design retreat
Hmm.
in California. And so that's where I actually met Jude. And so we had breakfast and we were just talking. And as I was talking with him, I was like, it was in my gut, like, we were just talking the same way. He believed the same things I believe. My dad was a filmmaker as well, so we had that connection. And I really wanted to bring IJD to life. There's only so much we can do on social media, and there's so much more to tell. And I just thought this is a great way also for my marketing. So our docuseries, anytime someone inquires about us, we send back an email, but within that email is a link to the docuseries so they can really see who they are working with. So I try to use it in every way that I can when I was trying to get my name and my community out there a little bit more. There were three architects, three builders, and three real estate agents I was really interested in working with. We created a curated package of a really cute coffee cup, coffee, and then a handwritten note with a QR code inside to our docuseries. And every single one of them reached back to me and allowed me to have a coffee date with them to talk. So I
That's
think that
amazing.
really creative with the way that I used it for marketing. But again, I think it tells a story better than any of my pictures could. There's so much more that goes in behind a pretty picture. It takes a lot to get there.
It's interesting because, having watched it myself, I think it did a great job of those things, right? For you, as you're advertising to clients, you could send to them, as you're advertising to different architects and builders, right? There's something to be said about the business development arm that it continues to like just strengthen that
Yeah.
portfolio. But even on the flip side, I could see, and I have seen Case in point with mine, we had the Docuseries release
Mhm.
and we got 2 resumes from it because 2 people are like, we want to work there.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
think about the versatility of hiring and bringing people into the culture, like you're creating culture,
absolutely.
right? And so you're attracting not just potential clients and reciprocity between your builder designer network, but also, potential new hires that may want to join your firm.
That's actually brilliant. I didn't even think about that, Brad, but I'm taking that one pen in my back pocket.
No, but it's true. It's funny because I was just with a client, potential client, well, who he is going to hire us yesterday. And, he's not like a lot of my clients, very private, doesn't
Mhm.
want to be on social media. On a personal level, they understand the business element side and they'll
Sure.
find a lot of value because they're like, Brad, it really helps us have a lot of trust for the building side of things, which you
Mhm.
probably typically don't. Um, but he asked me, because my opinion on this has changed. I'm like, yes, there is a business development arm, but we spoke about hiring. I'm like, when I look back, I have some of my really key people and really good team members, some of who you met, were very familiar with the brand through social media.
Mhm.
And it created a reason they want to be here. And so it's these layers of,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, of course, we have to match the image, right?
Right.
On systems and communication and culture and kindness and
Yeah.
opportunity and all things that go. But, it definitely adds a layer to it that I didn't see coming before. But,
Yeah. That's interesting. I may use that.
so you came to the summit.
Yeah.
Um, I think every summit we've had one designer there, at least, sometimes two. How did you feel being surrounded with a bunch of builders? Like, what did being at an event that could be overwhelming in a way?
Well, you knew going into it, I was super nervous. I
Yes.
even reached out to you going, Brad,
Should
should
I
I
be
do
there?
this? And you're like, absolutely yes. And if you did not send that message back, I don't know if I would have come. I honestly don't. But I'm so glad that I did. One thing I did, I don't know if you know this, but you guys gave us a few days before the summit a list of all the attendees
Yeah.
and their social media. So
Hmm.
I reached out to every single person on that because I thought if I reach out to them, then maybe it will open up a conversation. Because
Hmm.
I can actually be very shy in a big group if I don't know
Yes.
anyone, and I'll kind of observe and then I'll get comfortable. But because I did that, so many people walked up to me and they were like, Jen, you sent me the message on Instagram. That was so nice. So then it opened up a conversation. So then we could start talking and chatting and talking about life. So that was kind of like the first day, day of school when have all the jitters of, walking into the new classroom. Um, that kind of calmed my nerves and allowed me and I had so many great, as you know, there were so many great conversations that were had, very vulnerable, intimate, real life, not anyone trying to show that they're better than anyone else. It wasn't the Instagram pretty, it was like behind the scenes, the messy, and that is real life, and that's what we're all struggling with. And that was probably one of the key things that I walked away is I was having a conversation with one of the builders there, and he was talking about imposter syndrome. That's what we talk about on the designer side. When we're talking about business and the way we're feeling about running a business, a lot of us carry this imposter syndrome.
Right.
A lot of us carry burdens of, these very expensive projects and making sure that we get everything right. Um, just all kinds of different conversations I had. It wasn't where I felt like we were any different. We were the same. We
Hmm.
were running two different businesses, but a lot of it's the same kind of model. That was one of the reasons I wanted to come and was so important to me is I want to build amazing relationships with my partners in whatever we are working on. I want to know, what are your pain points? What are your burdens? So then I can be more empathetic. So I know what it's going to look like, what your process is, and what that's going to do to you and mess you up. What can I do to prevent that? I think that makes me a better team member, and that's who I want to be. And also, I want to run a really good company. So I want to learn from other business people.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's funny as you have been in business long enough, it can be lonely,
Yeah.
right? Like it's kind of lonely on your little island of running a company. And, there are challenges that happen every day. Like you mentioned, I mean, you're a lot more confident than you are today. You set expectations better because you've been through it.
Yeah.
But there's still things that come across. You're like, how do I handle this? What do I
Right.
do? And when you have a resource of people in your network that understand or can relate, there's a lot of value in that. And you mentioned, that there's burdens that you're dealing with. There's stress. How do you deal with that on a personal level? Like, what are your outlets to deal with entrepreneurship and running a business?
Honestly, it's building friendships and relationships within the business that I can call up and chat with. That's on the business side of things. But sometimes you just have to internally, I have to get out, walk, get fresh air, and just instead of rush, I have to slow down and be still, because sometimes when we rush, that's when mistakes happen, or that's when we jump the gun instead of really slowing down to think through a situation or how we should handle something. So those are a couple of outlets that I do. I'm not going to the gym like all of you guys. I'm busting a move at 4 a.m. in the morning, but I'm being a little bit more still, drinking my coffee, slowing down.
Hey, you know what? Everyone has an outlet.
They
Having your
do.
coffee and having some quiet time.
Yeah.
That's probably a lot healthier for your mind. Gives your mind a minute to wake up and
Yeah.
get ready for the day
That's right.
instead of just go, go, go. As you look at what are some of your pain points as a designer?
Oh, I think we talked about this at the summit. I think communication. Communication is hard because everybody has different ways of communicating. And so being aligned is so important to me, and working through those things. Some of these pain points, I've learned the hard way. And so I'm really just mindful of knowing, okay, I go back to the expectation. If it's a new builder and I've never worked with them, I'm like, hey, before the project even starts, let's go grab coffee. Let's get to know each other. I want to know how you work. I want to know all about you. I want to know your favorite coffee. So when I'm on a job site, I can bring you your favorite coffee. I
Mm,
want to know what's the best way for me to communicate with you. Text messages, call you, because some people are like, just pick up the phone and call me. I just want to know, how can I work with you better? That goes for my GCs I work with, goes with my architects, trades, anything. It's all about building the relationships, setting expectations, and working on our communication skills. And if I mess up on communicating, I'm going to take ownership. Or if I mess up on anything, I mean, that's one of our core values, is taking ownership.
mm.
But I want to make sure I can meet every point in that project to know that, hey, we're working well together.
Who do you feel is the toughest to communicate with? Your architects, your builders, or your clients?
That's a hard one. I think it depends. Each job has been different, where I could say, okay, on this job, it was the client was the hardest one. On this one, it was my GC working with. On this one, oh, that architect. I have an architect that's very old school. He doesn't do email. He only does phone call, and he hand draws everything. You can't read his handwriting, but he is really good at what he does. And he's fabulous once you get in a room, but it's really hard to communicate. He doesn't do any technology. He's
That's so
very
hard.
old school. And also, I'm working with this right now. I'm working with a legit Amish cabinet maker. Legit. You have to call the feed store to leave a message with him, and then he'll get it back. You can't do email. You have to be on site with him, walk, handwrite everything. I had to give him every single profile, the measurement. The communication had to be very, very clear, written, drawn, everything. That was a challenge, but in the best way, because I feel like I'm better now as a
Mhm.
designer. Yeah.
It makes you push. It is funny, project driven, because I think it's very similar. I don't think I can pinpoint one of the professions or the client. I think every project's unique,
Yeah.
and really what it comes down to, I mean, kind of how we touched on this with expectations with clients. I think there's expectation with the design team. I find it very valuable. Yes, there's some designers I've worked with for a long time. So, we have a good understanding. But working with someone for the first time, it's so important to have that first meeting to sit down and communicate. Hey, for me, and this goes back to probably why you attended the summit, it's really important for me to understand how my designer is profitable, how they make money, how they make a living, like
Mm-hmm.
what's going to keep their attention, what's going to make me bring value to them.
Yeah.
And some of it may be that they want to supply certain aspects of the build. Well, let me understand that, because I have some designers that are like, Brad, I want to do all the lighting. And some are like, I don't want anything. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want any responsibility. You do it. And so understanding how each designer operates like
Yeah.
really helps us. And then understanding, what are things that they're passionate about. And one thing that we found very valuable in that to really help, because I think communication in life, relationships, anything is always tough. It just always
Mm-hmm.
is. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, I, I heard a quote that I often live by, and it's like, we judge others on their actions and ourselves on our intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're such hard critics of others, like, oh, I would never do that, or I can't believe they did that. But, do we know if we're in that situation, how we'd respond?
Right.
And where I'm going is that I think a lot of times we expect certain people to communicate or operate a certain way without telling them that's how we want it to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? Set expectations. And so we do these page turns now where we would get in trouble is in some ways as the builder, we're the middle person. And what I mean by that, as much as we'll meet with the designer and architect, there's still a lot of hours that they're designing behind the scenes that we're not there. And
Right.
then all of a sudden we get this packet, we got to price it. And now the client's mad because we're over budget.
Right.
And why didn't you track all this? Well, and so we're kind of have guns pointed at us in a way, like, why is
Yeah.
this so expensive?
That
What are we
is
going
the
to do?
hardest part
Yeah.
is that's probably a struggle that I have that was part of the reason I went to the summit as well, is to have that conversation of exactly what you said of, am I over designing what was budget? This is the client's expectation. Where does that fit in? That's a complicated puzzle piece that I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. And you may have, I don't want to say any brands here to throw them on the bus, but you may say, we're going to be spec'ing this brand that's mid level. And then they pick the most luxury brand. And you're like, whoa, like, wait, like,
Yeah.
we're not even close, like, to what we had talked about. But, the point being is where we made a mistake early on, I think, in our career as a company and business is being the middle person. We wouldn't have the designer and architect at the budget presentation. We
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't talk to them with the final numbers. And more importantly, we would anticipate value engineering or deductions without consulting the design team,
Mm-hmm.
without the designer saying, no, this is a detail we have to have. If you
Right.
have options for a better way to do it, let's do it. But, even the architect, because what you don't want to do is start changing their design without their consent. And so we found the more we involve that, we do page turns, where we, before we bid it out, say, okay, Jen, let's go through your design book. Why, okay, Brad, make sure this detail. This is very important. I'm a story driven designer. This is very important to a story. Like,
Yeah.
if you find a cheaper way, let me know, but this is important. And so I find that the more communication we have up front in the bid process, and then
Yeah.
before we present it to the client, it makes a big difference.
Oh, I 100% agree. And that is my favorite way to work. And those have been my favorite projects to work on, is because then we're all aligned before we're even in front of the client to be like, and then fingers start pointing and then confusion comes in and then it's a big mess and nobody wants that.
No, no one does. Well, how do you set boundaries? Because what's tough for you as a designer, like, I can, to some extent set boundaries, but for you, I mean, clients will call you different
Mhm.
hours of the night, weekends, may not
No,
sense it's your time.
no,
You may have
no, they
designed
won't.
stuff. Yeah.
No, they won't.
You may design the whole house to, work with a lot of brass details, and then they come back and want Aura bronze, and you're like, wait a second, like, how do you, for changes, clients see something on Pinterest or Instagram, they want to make, how do you set boundaries just for time, communication, and your process as it is?
Yeah. It's part of the way we run our business. I said earlier, we're a very process driven company. We use a platform called Asana that really has a task for each step of everything from time the client inquiries until the time we offboard them. And during that, the way my process is set up is very much expectation driven. We tell the very beginning, this is how we communicate. These are the hours that we communicate. Like, I want to respect your time with your family that you're working so hard to build this house for, but I also need to respect my time with my family. And there's going to be times that it might need to adjust, but I don't want to take advantage. I don't want to take advantage of you, and I don't want you taking advantage of me. So it's a real friendly conversation. And then they're like, I get it. I understand. I mean, I luckily have not come across anyone that has not overstepped these boundaries, and they'll try. I won't answer a phone. I find my time when I decided to start this business that my family, my kids, I did not want them to grow up going, my mom was never here. I never saw her. She was always working. So when I leave work, I go home and I'm with my family, and I am cherishing that because they are gone. You have kids that are older, you realize they're gone in a blink of an eye. And I don't want to lose any of that. And then as far as like change orders and all of these things go, it is set up very much in our process, in our design. We have 3 different design meetings. We talk about how many revisions they get, when feedback's expected. And before any of these meetings happen, we send them another very beautifully curated, very organized email setting those expectations. So we keep on, not in a repetitive way where it's condescending, but in a repetitive way where it's just a friendly reminder of here's how we work, here's the process. And I don't want to say these are the consequences because it's not consequences, but if a change order happens, here's the domino effect that happens with that. We're happy to do it, but it's just going to cost you time, money, and we're going to be off timeline.
As you're setting those expectations, as you've had successful collaborations in the past, how is that project successful, whether the client or builder perspective?
It just keeps the communication forward. It keeps everything just moving in that forward motion, and it allows us to talk instead of assume. That's where things I feel like kind of get off rails, is when people start assuming things. And I never want someone to assume. I want to be able to give the why behind the reason. And so, yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Communication, and as you think, now I'm sure designs have changed, but what are your clients prioritizing now?
What do you mean? That's broad.
Yeah, I think what is important to them when you're meeting with a client and you're saying, you're going through these questions. What are there common themes you're designing? Is it wellness? Is it, lock and leave? I mean, less maintenance. I mean, what are certain things that they find more of a priority in general, your clients?
Most of my clients are really in the stage of building their family. Like still, either they're early
Young
on,
professionals,
young
middle age.
professionals, young families. I've actually had both. It's either young families or empty nesters, but wanting a space where they can entertain, where they can have their family come, where they can create memories. And I think that's really where I connect with people, is because they know that I'm very story driven and I'm wanting to build a home that fits their lifestyle and what they're wanting to gain. I've had a lot of hard things happen in life, and I just realized that life goes by very, very quickly, and I want to create as much joy as I can for people. And with that is being with family, with friends, having places that you're going to laugh hysterically, or having places where you've probably received the worst news of your life, but you still feel comfort and you feel safe. I really want to be a comfort to someone. So that is me hearing their story. So then I can build that.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have, and maybe this goes along the expectation line, are there any non-negotiables that you have, with clients, whether it's personal time, communication, whether it's design elements?
Design elements, everything's figure outable. So not in that. It really probably has to do more so with respect. And respect of time, respect of how we speak to one another, how we show kindness. Those are my non-negotiables. My team is very important to me. Sometimes I have clients that just want to work with me, and I can't make it all happen. I have to have a team to make it happen. So again, that's another very upfront client expectation. This is my team and this is who handles what. You're going to talk to all of us.
I love that. I love that, you have an expectation non-negotiable of, them willing to work with your team
Yeah.
because that is who you are and you have a team for a reason. Like you have people surround you and that's what makes your firm the
Yeah.
way it is. It's no different than us at AFT.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can only do so much, and I want to surround myself with those who are even better than me in
Yeah.
those other areas so then we can be great.
It's funny because I think back to the summit and Mark Williams had talked about, he gave the example with Hendel, I believe it's Hendel.
Yeah.
And they had a client that was a very significant portfolio piece of their company. And they're like, hey, but we need to meet, every Saturday at 1 p.m. or 3 p.m., whatever it was, throughout the course of the project. So every Saturday they would go.
Yeah.
And if like kids sports games or whatever, and he's
Yeah.
like, I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
And you think about like, if a client's not willing to respect that family time, they may not respect you. And what's interesting is, I hadn't heard that story, and this is a little bit different scenario, but it kind of goes back to the respect side you mentioned, Jen, is, it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. I had this job lead and it was an incredible project. I was so excited. I'm like, this is like a showpiece. This is like what I've been waiting to build. It's one of my early custom homes, And fortunately, somehow there was a banker that found out that they were working with me. And he's like, hey, Brad, be very careful. And sure enough, that afternoon, we were on a Zoom call and he started yelling at his wife, like in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, if you're not going to respect your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
like in front of us, like how are you going to respect me here in a month from now?
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up backing out of the project and it was a
Yeah.
tough go, but I look back and I'm like, it's probably the best no I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge non-negotiable with me. Nothing is worth it. Nothing in this life is worth, that aspect to me. I just don't think, yeah, there are things that are important to me. And if I have to lose a job because of the respect issue of time, how you communicate, who you are, how you treat us, then I'll be able to sleep at night. I'll be okay, and we're not the right fit.
Now, I know you design everywhere. What do you love most about designing around Chicago?
Oh, the history. There's so much history here. It's not your cookie cutter home. A lot of the homes we're working right now on a 1920s Tudor that has so much history and just the charm. It gets me really, I mean, no offense, we just don't build houses like we used to.
Yeah.
There's just
No, I'm not offended. Trust me.
I love the charm. And even in our new builds, I'm always wanting to bring in charm and bringing in elements that are unexpected, or it's the small details too. I love a small detail. I think that tells a big story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that I like about Chicago, but we don't have a whole lot of land here. So everything's very small. So that could be very challenging.
Well, I know you mentioned this to me when we were touring with Allison in downtown Chicago, and I know there has to be a focus of your company when you're looking at the ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
How is your ideal client, not that you have to tell the audience what that is, but how has maybe that ideal client changed over the years from, first starting your business to now, like the
Yeah.
client that you're looking for?
Yeah, I didn't know what I was looking for. I remember I worked with my marketing girl and she was working on who is your ideal client. I was like, I don't know.
Anybody?
Yeah,
Somebody
anyone.
write me a check. Yeah.
Yeah. So we literally just made up someone. And I actually did a whole refinement recently on my branding, our message, our story. And part of that was I was like, we need to change our ideal client because now I have experience and I have, like, I've named her. Her name's Charlotte, and I have the whole thing. But this is someone who basically at the end of the day, someone's coming to me because they trust me. They know who I am. They want to work with me. And even those that let's say they find us on Google, they now have our Docuseries that they can watch and they can see like, hey, I want to work with Jen. Like I can see what she can do. I can see how she works. I can see that she's story driven. I can see that she's process driven. I can see that she's got a team. So we've told our story right there in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, that's amazing. How, as you're running your business now, looking back, it's easy to say the question like, what would you do different? But instead of that, it's like, what, in a prior life, do you wish you would have spent more time understanding accounting or marketing or
Mm.
communication? If there's a certain angle that you feel you use a lot more in your business today, what would that be?
Oh, that's a really good question. That is what I've done this whole last year. I really took a deep dive into the business, and I feel like each year I've landed on somewhere. Like last year was really creating really like fine tuning our process, our SOPs, our vision, our core values, all of that. And then with that was born our marketing with Jude and that whole docuseries doing a refinement. And now that I'm moving into 2026, I'm really geeking out over the numbers, know my KPIs, having spreadsheets. I never thought I would love a spreadsheet more, but when I decided not to be afraid of the numbers and to really know them and understand them, it's only going to grow and scale our business and allow us to do bigger and better
Mhm.
things. Like Chicago is not our forever. We're starting to expand into other territories.
It's
And for me
amazing.
to be able to do that, I have to know how this business is being run outside of the process. I got to know those numbers and what it takes to be able to do this.
Such incredible advice. What keeps you up at night?
Oh gosh, having a 16-year-old driver, teenager boy, that's what
with,
keeps me up.
with winter coming, with snow coming?
Oh, we already had our first accident.
Oh, no.
Yeah, his fault. Um, but that's what keeps me up
Uh,
at night. Um, to be honest. Um,
But it's true though. Like I know you probably have some other things to share business wise, but
yeah,
when you're a parent, it's like, sometimes you have to put that business hat off and you're the parent side, and there's a lot of things to keep you up. That
yeah,
stress you out about your kids.
yes, yes. I didn't ever think having a 16-year-old would be, and he's just like me when I was 16. So I'm like, ooh. So he's a great, great, great kid.
Payback, as they say,
Um,
Jen.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But no, he's a great kid, but it does, and then he's going off to school. So we're starting to talk college and all of those things. So those are the things that keep me up at night. We're
Mhm.
also about to get a puppy. I don't know what I'm doing to myself, but we're about to add a puppy
I
to
think
the
the puppy for
mix,
sure in many ways will keep you up at night, especially as a puppy.
right? So yeah. So those are the things that keep me up. You asked me a year ago, it would totally be the business.
Mm.
But as soon as I really shifted my mindset to being a business owner that is running an interior design firm, things are just way more organized and it's just not so clouded. Everything is kind of put away, everything has their place. And I feel like, even this week we've had some challenges, but my team, we've executed it the best we could. And our clients were really pleased with how we worked everything out. We found a solution. We worked together as a team. Those things before would have kept me up at night because we wouldn't have had a protocol, if you will.
Hmm. Oh, it's so valuable. I mean, it's funny how you think back, but I mean, it just shows how much time you spend in your business. In
Yeah.
business, you've spent time inside your business, outside your business, with people that aren't even in the same interior design realm, and it puts you in a position where now you can stress about the things that matter, like your
Yeah.
son, which is pretty cool. I mean, it
Yeah.
just shows, level of expertise and where you're at in life and business. And I think it's very commendable. So what do you do for fun?
Oh gosh. I'm so boring, Brad. It's not even funny. Um, I think because I go, go, go. My husband's a pilot, so he's gone during the week. Kids are in sports. So if we can, like right now, it's football season. We
Yep.
love football. So we're really into college football on
Mhm.
Saturdays and Sundays. It's the NFL. Go Cowboys, even though don't judge. I know it's not our year, but next year it's our year.
Yeah.
Um, so that doing experiences, I love taking my kids. My son's interested in going to Tennessee, so I took him to the Tennessee Alabama
Oh,
game.
wow.
No
That's a
better
big
way.
deal. Yeah.
No better way to
There's no better way
experience,
to open up the SEC than Tennessee,
right?
Alabama. So yeah.
Exactly. Or like this year, the Cowboys paid the Bears, so I took
Yeah.
my boys to
Fun.
do that. So I like creating experiences with my kids, so then they have memories. Same thing with my husband. He and I, we are like shipping sales, just with him being a
Ships in the
pilot.
night. Yeah.
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 Is that what it's called? Yeah, I get
Yeah.
words mixed up all the time.
Yeah.
But
You're
anyway,
good.
so us planning like trips, just so we can reconnect, is really important to me. So it's really like during the weekend, it's really boring. Usually I'm not doing much, just catching up at home. But
Hmm.
then I try to plan like significant experiences for us to enjoy and create those memories.
You can't get those back. Those
That's
memories,
right.
it's like you got to make those, and that's why we do what we do. So you can do that. You can go to the Chicago Bear
Yeah.
Cowboy game and go to Tennessee, Alabama. Those really unique atmospheres. So that's amazing, Jen. You've been incredible. I'm so grateful for our friendship and the time made for the podcast. For those listening, where can they find you?
You can always find me on Instagram at Interiors by Jen Davidson. You can also visit my website. Same thing, Interiors by Jen Davidson. And I have a YouTube channel where you can watch
Amazing.
my docuseries.
Yeah. They need to check it out. All of you need to go check it out. It's incredible. So, Jen, thank you.
Thank you so much, Brad. This was a blast.